And then they were gone. I was back in my subconscious. Iris was in my arms, jet black hair hiding half her face from me. I said something, and she smiled, her smile as glorious as the setting sun. Then I was looking up at her, her face hidden by a jet black curtain. I ducked under the curtain and was greeted with her tear-stricken face. Wiping her eyes, she looked down at me, tears welling up just behind her big green eyes. I reached out to comfort her, and as my hand touched her cheek, I awoke. Sunlight shone through the window opposite where I lay. Sitting up, I felt refreshed. Fresh clothes lay at the end of the bed. Knowing the lack of doors between rooms, I dressed quickly. Looking around the house, I saw no one else. Just as I was going to sit down and wait, I saw a figure through the kitchen window. It was a female, judging by the skirts and long hair. Walking outside, I walked up behind her. I looked down over her shoulder and saw she was working a forge. Judging by her hesitations and shaky hands, this was her first time. "Let me do this," I said gently, reaching for the hammer in her hands. "Ah!" she shrieked, swinging the hammer at my head. "Whoa!" I said, intercepting the hammer with my hand. "Oh gods, it's you! You're awake! You startled me." "Sorry, I was just looking to see if anyone was home, so I could thank them for helping me." "No problem. Still want to do this for me? We can talk as you work." "Sure," I said, accepting the hammer and asking questions between hammer blows. "What am I making this into?" "An axe." "Who are you?" "Vanessa. You are?" "Telmus Alcander." "Where am I?" "Just outside the village Helos. Where are you from?" Far to the east." "Were there two little boys here when I was out?" "Yes, they were Damien and Tad." "Where are they now?" "They disappeared recently." "You don't seem too concerned." "Those two are always running off, coming back with rabbits and deers for the cookpot." "The clearing where I was found, is it near the village?" I asked, hammering the red-hot metal. "Yeah. Why do you ask?" "I was wondering if I could set up a smithy there," I said, the words leaping from my tongue, not taking time to stop in my head. "Oh?" "Yep. Here you are," I said, handing her the finished axe head. "You're almost done," I said, smiling. "The others and I will make you the smithy," she said, "if you give us a discount." "Deal," I said, amazed that she liked it that much. I'd only done a blacksmith's work once before, but I guess I was still pretty good at it. It seemed so long ago. "Excellent work, my boy. I wasn't near that skilled with a hammer when I was your age." "Thanks, Father." The look of pride on Father's face made me glow with joy. Anyway, and that is how I became the Smith of Helos. The smithy was done in a week, and it had a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and it was a mile outside the village. As the only smithy nearby, I was up to my ears in requests and had to work all day and half the night in order to keep up. The villagers gave me food and materials to work, and I gave them whatever they wanted. On weekends, I worked on armor that would never be used, and that was how it went for many months, until the day I had to use the armor. It was the same dream. Iris was in my arms. Jet black hair hid half her face from me. I said something, and she smiled, her smile as glorious as the setting sun. Then I was looking up at her, her face hidden by a jet black curtain. I ducked under the curtain and was greeted with her tear-stricken face. Wiping her eyes, she looked down at me, tears welling up behind her big green eyes. I reached out to comfort her. As my hand touched her cheek, a loud crashing snapped me out of paradise. I bolted upright and tried not to breathe too heavily as I listened. Seconds went. Minutes flew. Deciding it was just my imagination, I got out of bed. I had to repair Miss Toronto's cookpot before midday, make 20 more spearheads for the militia in town. The list goes on and on. I was just crossing in front of my dresser when there was a loud bang in the front room. Crouching down, I saw hooves under the door. Satyrs! Recently, the satyrs and other woodland animals had become seized by a plague of sorts, morphing them into savage, warlike beasts. I remember it well, by the oddity of it all. Damien and Tad had gone on another hunting expedition. They'd been gone for 3 days now. I was working in my forge, looking around occasionally at the peaceful woodland around me. Suddenly, there was a rustling in the bushes. Grabbing my hammer, I walked cautiously toward the bushes, alarmed when Damien dragged himself out of them. "They have him, Telmus. The satyrs have Tad," the boy murmured frantically at me, almost unaware of the arrows in his right thigh and the spear wound in his shoulder. "What happened, boy?" I said, heaving him onto my shoulder and beginning to run to Vanessa's. We were hunting in our usual spot, by a creek 20 miles from here." The boy gasped, tears pouring down his face like a first rain after a drought. "And we had cornered a stag against a cliff face. Suddenly, satyrs leapt out of the woodland behind us, binding us in ropes. We sliced through them with my dagger and ran. I remember hearing Tad cry out and felt the arrows hit me. And then I ran all day and all night. Do you have any water? I'm thirsty. So thirsty." The boy slurred. Passing him my water, I ran faster, keeping the boy talking, encouraging him to tell me anything he wanted. As long as he talked, he was alive. By the time I got to Vanessa's, the boy was barely talking. Pounding on the door, I yelled 2 words. "Damien's wounded!" Suddenly, Vanessa was there, taking me through her house, showing me where to put him. As she worked, I stood in the doorway, helping dispose of the arrows and getting vinegar as I told her what he had told me. Her face went pale as a sheet when I told her satyrs had done it, even paler when I told her Tad was still with them. Shooing me out her door that night, she told me something I'd never forget. "You've helped so many people here in Helos. We appreciate everything you've done for us." 3 days later, Damien was dead, and the scouts had come back reporting that all they'd found was satyr fur and Tad's garments covered in blood, strewn around a great cooking pot. That day, I swore I would be ready to avenge my friend. I had completed my armor and forged 2 great hammers, evenly balanced. Throwing open my dresser, I donned my mantle of war. "Let them come," I thought coolly. "I'm ready for them." As the satyrs battered at the door I forged, I took my emotions, my anger, my hurt, and I melted them in flames of rage. I took the result, a mess needing form, and I pounded it into shape with hammers of vengeance. Cooling the blade, I pulled it out and looked at what it had become. The end result was a tool, bathed in bloodlust, thirsty for satyr. "I'm going to avenge you, Tad," I thought, pulling on my helmet. "Ares, guide my hammers." I don't think the satyrs expected to put up much resistance. The look of shock on their faces when I opened the door was almost as satisfying as the feel of the hammer crushing the satyr's skull. Grunting, the other satyrs leapt forward, swinging clubs and hunting knives. Backing up, I hooked a chair through the doorway, nailing the satyr that tripped with a devastating uppercut that tore its jaw off. The satyr in the doorway backed up to avoid the body, and I dashed forward, slamming my hammer into its kneecap. Arrows bounced off my breastplate as I destroyed another satyr's spine. Rage consumed me, taking form as flames dancing off my hammers. I rushed the archers, which were hiding behind a barricade. I jumped onto one of the spikes and pushed off, leaping over the archers. In mid-jump, I took aim and threw my hammers, shattering 2 of the 3 archers' skulls. Landing, I was ripped off my feet as the 3rd archer fired, catching me in the shoulder, in a gap between my shoulder guard and breastplate. Standing up, I ignored the arrow in my shoulder and proceeded to beat the satyr, finally ending him by holding his bow to his head, drawing an arrow and punching a hole through his head. Picking up my hammers, I turned to look at the carnage. Bodies lay everywhere. My door had been knocked off its hinges, and my hammers were ablaze, as well as my house. Sighing, I turned to walk towards the village, when a hammer the size of a cow slammed into me, knocking me through the stone wall of my house. Winded, I tried to move the rubble when the monstrous satyr pulled me out. My breastplate had his hammer stuck in it. Grunting, the beast slammed me into the wall, dislodging me from its hammer. Raising my own hammers, I was promptly knocked on the head by a piece of falling ceiling. Deciding it was best not to get crushed by a building, I ran through my house, exiting through the back door. Turning around, I heard a loud bellow, followed by the rest of my house collapsing in on itself, flames trying to lick the sky desperately. Rest in peace, Tad, I thought. I turned, battered and bleeding, and began to hobble toward the village. So, yeah, that is it for today. If you like it, like it. If you have any suggestions for me, I'm willing to bet that my voices were kind of creepy when accompanied by my face. But yeah, so leave a like and a comment if you want to. If not, whatever. See you guys.